In World Challenge, we aim to find projects or small businesses from around the world that have shown enterprise and innovation at a grassroots level. In World Challenge, you'll discover how small projects and businesses could really make a difference for a community, for the environment. In this episode, we present 3 projects in 3 countries. A bright idea in Sri Lanka, emission control in the UK, and off-grid aid in Israel and Palestine.
Sri Lanka's 25-year civil war is over, and for some, the economic benefits of peace can't come too soon. Despite an electrification programme, over 6 million people, nearly 1/3 of the population, don't have power. In the countryside and in the deprived parts of the capital, Colombo, kerosene lamps are often the only source of light. The poor are constantly at risk from fires started by makeshift lamps. This is the culprit. They're often made from old bottles with a crude wick. If one of these lamps is knocked over, the liquid and vapour ignite and everything it contacts goes up in flame in seconds. Horrendous injuries can result from the conflagration. Dr. Wijaya Godakumbura says he can drastically reduce the number of these tragedies. "300,000 people around the world die from accidental kerosene burns every year. Anoma was caught in a bottle lamp fire 4 years ago when her bedside lamp tipped onto her while she was asleep.
When I was on fire, I was so scared I couldn't even shout for help. I just froze. When my back started to burn, I collapsed.
Anoma was lucky to have the flames put out quickly.
I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I was going to get a job here, or else go abroad to work. But I can't now because of this. I have all kinds of aches and pains. I can't even lift up a bag anymore.
Dr. Wijaya Godakumbura has spent his life in Sri Lanka's operating theatres. 17 years ago, he came across a case that would change the course of his and thousands of other lives.
As a surgeon, for many years I have been witnessing these horrible injuries. So one day in 1992, a woman of 20 years who was pregnant got admitted to my ward with severe burns from bottle lamps. And she lasted only 24 hours. So that day I thought, I must do something because there's nobody else doing anything to prevent them.
When he investigated further, he found out that hundreds of Sri Lankans were dying like this every year, and the cause was unsafe lamps. Here by the railway tracks in Colombo, the only lamps on offer are these made from old light bulbs. 10 out of 10 for recycling, 0 for safety. World Challenge didn't have to ask many people before we found someone with first-hand experience of a kerosene lamp fire.
The lamp tipped over and my curtains caught fire and it spread to wooden walls, and we managed to put it out with water. I was very scared. Luckily, our children weren't there.
You can see this house is badly constructed with wooden planks forming the walls. There are about 900,000 houses like this, where there is no electricity, and therefore they use unsafe makeshift lamps. When they tip, they can easily set fire to the whole house. So a serious situation which must be corrected as early as possible, because the more you delay, the more people will suffer and there's more loss of life.
With no reliable alternative to kerosene as a fuel, Dr. Godakumbura came up with his bright idea.
This is an unsafe lamp. This cannot be screwed onto it. So when it topples, it is thrown out along with the kerosene and there can be a huge fire. Now this is my lamp. It is short and heavy wick. It could be screwed on. If I strike very hard, it will tip, but it won't roll.
like this.
The next step was finding a way to mass produce the lamps. Dr. Goda Kumbura had moulds for the lamps custom built and struck a deal to set up his own production line in the factory. The specialised equipment cost under $300, and as his design is simple, it was easy to integrate into the production line. The lamps are manufactured in batches of 1,500 a day at a cost of 40 cents each. And there's no shortage of people in need of the safe lamps. Dr. Goda Kumbura set up the Safe Bottle Lamp Foundation with full-time staff of just 2 to promote his Safety First lamps. The only sure way to help is by knocking on doors to allow the foundation to give them away freely. It's not been easy.
Collecting funds is very difficult. When we write to 20 organisations, we usually only get 1 or 2 replies because the economic situation is difficult in Sri Lanka, and because of the war, they say they can't give us any money.
Today, Dr. Goda Kumbura is going out of town with a stack of safe bottle lamps to give away. So far, he says he has distributed nearly 800,000 lamps throughout Sri Lanka. Teaming up with local religious and community organisations, Dr. Goda Kumbura usually targets the up-country areas which need it most. But here, only 40 kilometres from Colombo, some people cannot afford electricity, even though it runs past their houses.
We found 41 families without electricity.
Everyone has been asked to bring their bottle lamps along. But before he gives any of the new ones out, Dr. Goda Kumbura has a roadshow to spread the word on burn safety. There's a demonstration of the dangers of burning kerosene and why his lamps are safer, and basic advice to keep lamps on a stable surface and not to let children play with them. Afterwards, it's time to line up and collect the lamps, 2 per household.
This is not just another handout. This is something very personal and very important to them. They are the direct beneficiaries of these lamps. It's nice to go out to their homes and make a difference, because that could be the difference between life and death.
We've learned some good things today. The difference between the 2 lamps is that these new ones give us safety.
Dr. Goda Kumbura collects their dangerous old lamps. Today's total is 58. They'll be taken out of circulation, just like hundreds of thousands of others have been across Sri Lanka since 1993.
I'm very happy. After years of waiting, I've got a good safe lamp. We keep 4 bottle lamps on all night because we live by a paddy field, and all kinds of animals come in from the paddy field. Snakes and lizards and frogs.
The other lamps tip over so easily, but even if this one goes over, there won't be a fire, so we're really happy about it.
With their new lamps, householders have less to worry about, and there's also anecdotal evidence of a drop in emergency admissions where they're being used.
I feel that these lamps are very cost effective and very safe. In my experience as the Director General, I should say that the burns and deaths following the bottle lamp has come down seriously after the supply of the safe bottle lamps by Dr. Goda Kumbura. So I wish that we would be able to continue to supply this.
There's no doubt that hundreds of lives have been saved in areas where safe lamps are being used, and they've been approved by the World Health Organization and UNICEF as a good way to reduce the hundreds of thousands of deaths and injuries from burns, not just in Sri Lanka, but worldwide. Livestock is responsible for 18% of all greenhouse gas emissions, more than all the world's transport. Now, a team from the UK may have a solution, a feed additive that makes cows produce more milk and less gas. Livestock produces something like 33 billion tonnes of greenhouse gas a year, and about a third is from cows. The trouble with methane is that it's 21 times more damaging a greenhouse gas than CO2. Where does it come from? A cow's got 4 stomachs. Grass gets chewed and sent to the biggest, the rumen. Bacteria in the cow's gut help break down the grass, but produce methane, which goes down the waste plumbing to come out at the rear of the cow. Actually, more comes out of the animal's mouth as it gently chews the cud. Either way, it's greenhouse gas. But can anything be done? Well, there's one idea. It's called Mutral.
Mutral is a very simple idea. It's a product that helps reduce carbon emissions from the livestock industry. The product is an actual derivative of a natural ingredient, garlic, and from it we make a feed additive that is given to the cows. It helps them digest and therefore helps reduce the methane emissions that emanate from the cows themselves.
Somebody's got to investigate cow farting, you know.
Professor Jamie Newbold is a microbiologist who knows just how much methane they make and how reducing this can actually increase milk production.
Well, in terms of methane, we'll get about 500 litres out of this young lady, and about 80% of that's going to come out that mouth, and the remaining 20% out the back end. So what we're looking for is a win-win scenario whereby we can reduce methane, which reduces the greenhouse gas effect, but we can also produce more energy into the milk. And that's what drove our interest to try and look at different strategies to decrease methane production by cattle.
Adding garlic essence to the grass changes the chemical process in the cow's stomach. It improves the efficiency of digestion, making less methane and more milk.
We start off by taking whole garlic, which I buy at the local wholesale market. I'm known as Mr. Garlic, or the garlic man there. We then in fact peel it, we'll weigh the garlic.
Dr. David Williams has been extracting the essence of garlic ever since he found how to isolate allicin, the very volatile part that reduces methane.
It's important that this doesn't get too hot. The smell of garlic is allicin, and this is really what we're looking for. It is the active agent. Not only is it a very good antibacterial agent, but it's an insect repellent as well.
It's this antibacterial effect that is thought to rearrange the chemistry of a cow's gut by limiting the bacteria that makes methane.
Cows didn't create global warming, that was mankind through his contribution. What we can do, however, is we can make a reduction in greenhouse gases from cows, and as I say, in doing so, increase the productivity.
We take a sample like that into a small vial. We'll then in fact take a standard amount of that liquid. Back out to keep it stirring. All right. And dilute it 100 times to get us to our standard concentration. This will now go into the HPLC machine, into position 1 in the auto-changer. This one is one of the reaction products produced when we produce allicin. It's known as pyruvic acid. We have some secret ingredients that we put into it, which are our secrets.
15 minutes, yes?
Yeah, after 15 minutes we spin it. Just slow that down there. As you can see, it's pulled all the sediment and the protein or plant matter down to the base of the cylinder, and that's clarified and ready to go to the customer.
I think, in fact, we know it's going to work. We're confident that it's going to work. Just how well it'll work, I think, is yet to be determined. But we're starting now at sort of 15 to 20% reduction, and that represents about 1.5 litres of milk per cow per day. And we think we can probably push it up to 50% without any detriment to the actual cow itself.
These chambers were put in place to measure energy metabolism of cows. And methane is a very important component of the energy losses from the feed that a cow is fed.
At Reading University, Dr. Chris Reynolds will be feeding cows with added allicin and measuring how much or how little methane they emit.
These are called respiration chambers. They're basically boxes that we put the cows in, we then seal them up, and then we're able to obtain very precise measurements of methane production from the dairy cows. So the air is flowing through these exhaust pipes, and we have flow meters that are measuring the flow rate of air through these pipes, and we also have sampling ports. So we're taking samples of the air from the exhaust air from the chamber and also from the air coming into the chamber from outside. And we're then taking that air and putting it through these analyzers that you can see through here. Okay? And these analyzers are then telling us the concentration of carbon dioxide, of methane, and of oxygen.
There is good evidence that there is an effect. We don't know all the answers. And the whole program that we're working on now and what we want to do in the future is to make certain that the science is good.
And it's science that'll find out if the resulting milk tastes or smells of garlic. At the University of Wales, there's a brand new facility to test for just such tainting of food. And Neem Biotech, with their garlic milk, will be the first customer.
One is the milk produced by cows who are eating the animal feed with garlic in. Putting the samples into the little cubicle, so when the taste testers come in, they don't see anything this side, they wouldn't see me.
So far, no one can tell the difference, but the research continues.
There is suspicion. We still need to do those final tests, and we've agreed with a few corporations and multinationals to carry out those tests to make sure that your chocolate, your milk, or your yogurt will not smell or taste like garlic.
Where in fact we have validated methane reductions, we will be generating carbon credits, which we will sell to participating companies. That's the model we're trying to work and trying to develop. Whatever we can do, I think we need to do for the sake of our children.
So that's why we believe that Mutual is a winner. It's a global winner. It's simple, it's scalable, it's sustainable, and the effects are immediate after the product is given to the cows.
The contrast in income and lifestyles between the Israeli and Palestinian communities of the West Bank is stark. Now, two enterprising Israeli scientists are reaching out to bridge the gap by providing electricity to Palestinian settlements, one village at a time. Elad Orion and Noam Dotan are physicists dedicated to using science and technology to safeguard the environment and improve relations with the Palestinian communities. 2 years ago, when they decided that demonstrating for peace in Israel or the West Bank was simply not good enough, they created a not-for-profit enterprise, Comet ME, which stands for Community, Energy and Technology in the Middle East. Comet Me has the very practical aim of transferring renewable energy know-how and technology to deprived Palestinian communities. The scientists have built solar and wind power systems for Palestinian settlements that are not connected to the grid in South Hebron, in Area C, the part of West Bank under Israeli control.
I cannot change the whole atmosphere or the path of history, but I can try to make impact in the small world I'm living in, and with the people, with the community, work together.
Since the 1980s, Area C is where the majority of the Jewish settlements have been built. They all have electricity, water and roads. But in Susia, a small Palestinian village of 37 families squeezed between an Israeli army base and a settler community, the basic necessities of modern life are out of reach. Electric poles surround the village, but the people are not able to connect to the grid. The relations between the settlers and the villagers are tense, sometimes violent. Elad Orion and Noam Dotan saw that a way to achieve better relations would be to bring electricity to Susia.
From the first time I got here, I thought that these people, in spite of the harassment of the settlers, the very hard day life they have the gift of nature. They have a lot of sun, and it's very windy here, as they should use this gift.
Noam, a former high-tech executive, had learned how to build homebrew wind turbines from the pioneer Hugh Pigott in Scotland. Together with Elad, he designed a model for Susia. But they faced two major challenges. putting up the wind turbine without interference from the Israeli army, and then a bigger hurdle, overcoming the mistrust of the villagers.
We got to families that had very little contact with Israelis before. And there was suspicion. There was suspicion also on the political level, but also on just pure human level. I mean, we come here to a community that lives out of the land, no connection to grid, very little technology.
When they first came here and we first met them, we thought they were settlers. But when they sat with us and we discussed, we understood that they were here to help us. But we were still suspicious. We thought maybe they will trap us, make us sign papers regarding our land, things we didn't know much about, for instance.
It took months to gain the villagers' trust. Then at last, in early April 2009, the wind turbine was assembled under cover of darkness and put up at dawn without any opposition from the Israeli army. It produced about 3 kilowatt hours a day, enough power to run a hairdryer for 3 hours, or change lives with much more modest use. It was an instant hit with the village women, who up to now had to shake traditional churns for hours by hand. Comet Me provided an electric churn powered by the wind turbine. But the biggest change came with an energy-efficient fridge. The dairy products can now be stored and bring better prices on the market. Most families' incomes increased by a quarter, from $270 a month to $380.
Yes, it affected us a lot. People used to buy our products at a lower price before we had the fridge. For instance, before the fridge, we used to sell the butter for 12 shekels. It didn't sell well on the market. Now we sell the kilo for 18 to 20 shekels. The cheese went up from 10 to 15 shekels.
Meanwhile, Noam and Elad saw that 20% of the power generated by the wind turbine was being lost, so they decided to upgrade it to increase the storage capacity of its deep cycle batteries.
Both of us are, technical people.
We like to tinker, we like to play with this, so it's also for us.
It's a lot of fun.
Fun, but timely. The upgrading of the wind turbine allowed the villagers to get a second fridge.
In 3 weeks, Ramadan will start. The prices of all foodstuffs in Ramadan go up by, dozens of percent. If they cannot store perishable food, they would need to buy all the time food during Ramadan, thus increasing their spending by a lot.
It took Noam and Elad 2 years and $76,000 from several donors to power an entire village. The bulk of the funds was spent on equipment. Today, Susia is peppered with solar panels. All in all, there are 40 of them. Since they were installed, the people here don't need to travel to nearby towns just to charge their mobile phones. In winter, when the children get back from school, they can do their homework.
We thank these people who brought us electricity. Before we used gas, and when it rained it blew out. And when it went out, we had no more gas. Now we don't need to go out and look for some on foot.
Soon there were only 6 households left without electricity in Susia. That day, the Comet Me founders, with the help of some volunteers and the villagers, were rushing to finish the last installations. It was the turn of the Nawaja family, who live in a cave. 2 years ago, they left their life in a nearby town and came back to the village, they say, to protect their land from the settlers. 2 dismal years in a dank and dark cave, and in less than 2 hours, hope soared again.
Bismillah.
God willing, in spite of the difficult conditions, the hardest part is over. Nothing worse can happen now.
Simple maintenance is now carried out by the villagers themselves. Elad Orian and Noam Dotan have also secured scholarships for 2 young men in Susia who are studying electrical engineering to learn how to run renewable energy systems.
A dream that we have is that inevitably renewable energies would become a main source of energy in Palestine because it just makes so much sense. And I think it would be a beautiful thing if in 10 years' time or something, there would be the people leading renewable energy field in Palestine.